Debuting in Medarot 8, this rather unique vampire squid type serves not one but two roles moderately well and serves as an irritant in each. It is VSQ00 Vamp Squid, with a kit of melee guard, double flash, sea legs, and the leg ability of Abscond, which passively buffs the cool stat of all equipped parts just by having the leg equipped. Now, as a model that also is very strangely designed for auxiliary fighting, Vamp Squid actually uses it to his particular advantage, and in many cases, as mentioned, can serve as a very solid irritant, not just as an ailment fighter to a point, but also as a defender, which makes him very handy for early on for rookies and new players, as well as in selective uses in even competitive meta with veterans today. Melee Guard is a defense-based skill that means that while he is active on the center line, Vamp Squid will intercept and nullify all incoming melee-based attacks at 0 damage to himself and any ally that he's intercepting it for. The big weakness to this is that even though he has a very large number of charges at 5, if he's capped at 5-star, it means that if anyone is using, say, Destroy or Defense Seal or even Slip, he will honestly have himself one-shotted or even murdered very, very easily without even intending to take the hit unintentionally. That being said, though, the other big weakness to Melee Guard is the fact that he only will intercept melee-based skills, which means if he's coming up against anyone that is predominantly shooting-based, they are going to take one look at Vamp Squid and very openly and eagerly ignore him, which will kind of waste a slot as he just sits there on a line and watches his allies die in front of him. Flash is an ailment-based skill that has a rather unique take on it, but if used correctly can be made very advantageous. Simply put, if you manage to outrun a foe and hit them in their heat phase with Flash, it will force them to stop wherever they're at, turn around, and begin their cooldown right from that very point, which means it's very good for stall tactics. In addition, Flash also does temporarily inflict no dodge and no defend on the enemy, making it very good as essentially a temporary deathlock to a point, which means that it's not just buying you a couple extra seconds for your nuker to get up to the line, but it's also making it easier for them to kill that particular target, as it leaves them wide open until they finish their cooldown and their heat phase to the next turn. Now, of course, anyone that's just slow enough can outrun this moderately well, but it's still a very solid skill to make use of all the same, especially for stall tactics as mentioned. Sea Legs means that Vamp Squid will have moderately decent terrain coverage across most of the terrains pretty well. He will have a very naturally high evade though, which is to be expected for Sea Legs, with moderate and decent stats across the board everywhere else. Now, with Sea Legs, though, even though it is fitting of his motif as a vampire squid, it does mean that he is also very heavily subject to the anti-sea weakness. So anyone that is using anti-sea, such as, say, Dorcas or Sonic Stag meta changes, or even Bottom Flash, or someone of the like, he will be taking a massive amount of damage from them. Now, the only drawback the only advantage to this, though, is if they are using a melee-based anti-sea skill. In this case, while he is on the line in defense stance, he will still negate the blow at 0 damage. That being said, as a pure set score, I do honestly have to rate Vamp Squid a pretty solid 5.5 out of 10. Even though Sea Legs mean that he is moderately picky on the terrain that he's on, he still can get to the line decently well and serve either as a defender or an irritant, depending on how you choose to use him. Whether that you use him for Flash to temporarily stun foes, or use Melee Guard as a dedicated defender, barring any weaknesses that might be bypassed. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him much higher at a 7 out of 10, given that even though his Sea Legs you may not use super often, Flash still does have some very solid uses even in today's competitive meta, and when it comes to new players and rookies, Melee Guard is going to be an absolute lifesaver for you, as something to help make sure that you're covered while you're still learning the game or need to buy some time for your nuker to get to the line. And given the fact that he also is a permanent banner bot at 2 stars in the regular gacha, you already have a very solid chance of getting him at pretty much any other banner you pull from.